welcome. You're on Friday Double Bill, India's first full-length film review show. If you've been following us so far, whether on YouTube or on television, you would know we're the only platform available where you get two perspectives on the new releases, film releases every week. That's Fahad Samar.
And that's Mayank Fahad. And we've had a very busy week at the movies because we have two Indian films to review this week and two Hollywood releases as well. Coming up is Badlapur with Varun Dhawan and Nawazuddin Siddiqui, followed by the Punjabi film Kissa. And then we'll find out if we were wowed by Wild and Whiplash.
Badlapur, directed by Sriram Raghavan, is quite literally a revenge drama. The tagline of the film, "Don't miss the beginning," refers to the start of the film, obviously, which if you do miss, you won't know what happens in the entire movie. So the first scene basically concerns a bank robbery. The bank robbers get into a car with a woman and a little kid. The robbers end up killing both the mom and the child. One robber gets caught and remains in jail for 15 years. This character is played by Nawazuddin Siddiqui. The other robber escapes with all the loot. The young person planning the revenge is the man who lost both his wife and the child. Varun Dhawan plays this hero or anti-hero, as it were.
You know, Mayank, after the debacle of Agent Vinod, I was rather apprehensive and also hopeful for Sriram Raghavan because I think he's a fine filmmaker who's unfortunately lost his way somewhere. Some of his early work, certainly Ek Hasina Thi and Johnny Gaddar, had such infinite promise. This film started out so beautifully. I was so impressed. Up to the interval, it just had you enthralled. He had the pacing right. He had everything going for it. And as usual, we get into that trap of the post-interval curse. You come back and I was wondering what the hell is going on. Such an interesting premise. This is a psychological, understanding of a so-called protagonist and a so-called antagonist, Nawazuddin Siddiqui and Varun Dhawan. I mean, it's so unfair to pit anyone against Nawazuddin. I remember we were watching Kick,
right,
and when Nawazuddin came on,
for like the 5 minutes, yes,
audience went bananas. And this is despite the fact that Salman Khan, their beloved Bhai, was right there on screen. It was Nawazuddin stealing the show. I think poor Varun Dhawan has a lot of effort to put in before he can hold his own against it. He's very earnest, and that's all it is, I'm afraid, very earnest.
Yeah, well, I completely agree with you on a couple of points. One, that you started talking about Sriram Raghavan to begin with. His first film, Ek Hasina Thi, if you recall, was set in a jail. Which is primarily the first half of this film as well, as it was true for Ek Hasina Thi. And then the second half of the film, Ek Hasina Thi I'm talking about now, things just went haywire. Yes. So something that starts off so beautifully, goes down the hill so badly, and that's precisely what I was watching happen in this film as well, because those jail sequences are just marvelous.
Yes.
They're the most kick-ass sequences I've seen in Indian film in the longest while, for a lot of reasons. One, that it's actually shot in a jail, is a Nasik jail. Second, what does a camera tend to do in a really great film? It takes you to forbidden places. Now, I hope none of us have been to a jail, but we've also never been to a bedroom of a person while the husband is outside and, the wife is moaning and he's supposed to not even do anything about it. And there are lots of other sequences in this film which I think first rate, top class. So that's one. Second, there is Nawaz, and I think he should get a national award every year. And he's been doing this for the past 3-4 years continuously with some performances that are mind-blowing. And at no point can you recall him doing exactly the same thing in his previous film. I think it takes a lot. I think his face is just a slate. It takes on character after character, and it never at any point bothers you that is the same guy doing a typical same old role of being this really poor man, from the Badlands of Badlapur in this case. So great performance there. I think in terms of direction, I was quite pleased with most of it. But since we're still on the direction, I think what went wrong with Agent Vinod is roughly what goes wrong with this film so far as I'm concerned, although I like most of it, is they just overstretch it to a point where it stops being nourishing for the audience.
Yeah, at 2 hours, 20 minutes, for what should have been a really tight character study of two incredibly complex characters playing a cat and mouse game against one another and how the tables turn. It just could have been such a wonderful film. Unfortunately, fell on its face second half.
So far, since we are talking about moments, I think this movie really outshines most others that I've seen in the recent past purely because of certain sequences, certain scenes. And the one that I really enjoyed a lot, because it's also in some form a commentary on media, is where the Varun Dhawan's character, he gets recognized on a train. And since we watch so much television, or we watch so many visuals through the day, so there is no sign of how we know someone or why someone's famous. And everyone in the train recognizes him because of the particular case where, it's his wife who's died, it's his kid who's died, but nobody knows where. So it's like, isko kahin KBC mein dekha hai. The other one says, nahi, ye to kisi reality show mein aata hai. And
TV serial mein. And the wife says, TV serial mein hota to train se kyun travel hota? Yeah. Wonderful vignettes right through, great dialogue. I think the neorealism of this film is probably its finest part of the film, is just the way that he's been able to forget about all the gloss.
Although I must point out here, since we're talking about that one particular sequence, if that many people knew who he somewhat looked like, I think the guy who's actually done the murder or the missing robber would also remember him even after 15 years, but quite clearly doesn't.
Yes, I mean, certainly those kind of licenses are being taken. But I must commend the performances by the females in this film. They have, a lot of certain amount of sexual exploitation is going on. They're, made to strip down to their undergarments quite often in the film. And I think Huma Qureshi really does a great job. It's a brave role for her, playing a prostitute from the lower echelons of society. Her face is full of, pockmarks and things like that. I think it's, there's no concealer use. So I think sometimes this use of realism has been consistent.
So now clearly it's the verdict time, and so far as I'm concerned, I know lots of things that I enjoyed the film for, and I've already mentioned those. Nawazuddin Siddiqui is the first one. Sriram Raghavan, in terms of certain moments that he pulls off, which is really, really good, although, not in the context of the whole film, but at least individual moments are fantastic. Varun Dhawan is not my choice for the best role or best performance in this film, but hey, it is too long, but it is a lot of fun also in parts. So if you are doing nothing and you do have the money to spare for some weekend entertainment, I think it's worth going to the theatre.
Well, you're spoiled for choice this week at the movies, but by all means, go for it. This weekend itself, theatre mein dekho.